Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always ready to dig into something interesting.
Well, today we're focusing on just one story, but this one's got some layers to it, It really makes you think.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. What's the story?
It all went down in a cafe in Philadelphia. Seems like just a normal day, people getting coffee, going about their business.
Right. Just an average afternoon.
Exactly, until Barron Trump walks in.
Oh, wow. Okay, so already we're starting with someone pretty high profile.
Yeah, he's trying to keep a low profile, just wants to grab a coffee probably.
Ugh.
But then this guy, he comes storming in, clearly not having a good day, and he goes right at Barron.
That's intense. I can only imagine the tension in the cafe. So you've got Baron, who's used to being in the spotlight, suddenly facing this public confrontation. What happened next?
That's the thing, right? You'd expect him to get defensive, maybe even security steps in, but he doesn't.
Interesting.
He actually stays calm, offers the guy a seat, a chance to talk. I mean, have you ever seen that work? Just inviting someone who's that angry to sit down and chat.
It is surprising, isn't it? But think about it. In that moment, there's this power dynamic at play. The man comes in with all this anger, trying to control the situation.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But when Baron offers him a seat, a space to be heard, it subtly shifts the control. It's almost disarming.
That's a good point. Sort of like taking the wind out of his sails by not reacting the way he probably expected. So who is this guy, the one who confronted Barron? What's his story?
Well, the source we're looking at paints a pretty clear picture of his situation. Job loss, family falling apart, he feels invisible, judged by society. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like he's carrying a lot of weight.
And, while his reaction is extreme when you consider the broader context, it starts to make sense in a way.
What do you mean?
Well, this isn't just one man's bad day, right? It taps into this undercurrent we see in society, economic hardship, people feeling alienated, left behind. I mean, haven't we all felt some version of that at some point?
Absolutely, that feeling of being unseen or misunderstood.
Exactly. But here's the really interesting part, Baron. A guy who seemingly has it all tells the man that he understands those feelings.
You're kidding?
Yeah.
Really, he actually connected with this guy on that level.
He did. He admitted to feeling judged, misunderstood, even with all the privilege he has.
Wow, that's pretty unexpected.
It is, and it highlights this idea that we all share certain human experiences. Sure, we might have totally different backgrounds, different levels of wealth or whatever, but emotions like pain, isolation, wanting to be seen, those are universal.
That's a good point. It's like a reminder that we're not as different as we sometimes think. So what happened next? Did the man calm down after Barron said that, or was he still pretty upset?
He was still worked up. The story goes on to describe the man's situation in more detail. The factory closure, the job losses, his family breaking down. You really get a sense of the weight he's carrying.
Okay, but at this point, Barron's just listening, right? I mean, he's not trying to solve the guy's problems or anything.
Exactly. And this is where the idea of active listening comes in. It's more than just hearing the words. It's about creating a space where someone feels truly heard and validated.
Okay, so help me understand that a little better. What does active listening actually look like in practice? Because it feels like it goes beyond just sitting there quietly.
You're right. There are specific things that make someone a good active listener.
Like what?
Well, for example, reflecting back what the other person is saying, not interrupting with your own story, making sure your body language shows you're engaged.
So it's like you're really present in the conversation.
Exactly. And it's a skill you can develop, and it can be incredibly powerful, especially in heated situations. It can literally de-escalate things, which is what we see happening in this story.
So in this case, Barron's just listening is actually starting to have an effect on the man's anger.
It seems that way. Think about it. The man is looking for acknowledgement, for someone to see his pain, and by simply listening, Barron is providing that.
That makes a lot of sense. So what happens next? Does the man just keep unloading his frustrations, or is there a turning point in the story? Because I'm guessing if this is a story about the power of listening, something has to shift, right?
Yeah, there is a shift. It's kind of unexpected, too.
Oh, what happens?
Well, it would have been easy for the man to just dismiss Barron, like, oh, you rich kid, you don't get it. He could have just stayed angry.
Right, I mean, like you were saying before, he came in ready to fight.
Exactly. But he doesn't. Instead, he actually starts apologizing, saying he let his anger get the best of him.
Whoa, hold on. So the guy who's about to cause a scene is now apologizing. That's a pretty big turnaround.
It is. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, that feeling of being heard. Remember, he came in feeling invisible, like nobody cared.
Right, like his problems didn't matter to anyone.
And then suddenly you've got someone he probably sees as powerful and privileged, actually listening to him, acknowledging his pain.
And that changes things.
It can be incredibly disarming. It's like in that moment, he realizes he's not invisible after all. Someone sees him, someone gets it.
That's really powerful. So what about the other people in the cafe? How are they reacting to all of this?
The source mentions this almost palpable sense of relief in the cafe after the apology.
I bet. I can only imagine how tense it must have been before that.
You can almost hear everyone breathe a collective sigh of relief.
Okay, but hold on. You said almost palpable. Do you think maybe not everyone felt that relief? What about the people who might have felt, threatened by the guy's outburst?
That's a good point. We're getting this story from, just one perspective, and it's easy to get caught up in this overall feeling of connection and understanding. But you're right, for some people in the cafe, it might have been a totally different experience.
Yeah, like maybe they were scared or even angry that this guy disrupted their day.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that even in a shared experience like this one, there are always multiple perspectives, different ways of seeing things.
So it's not just about the man and Barron. It's about how their interaction affects everyone around them. It's like this ripple effect.
Exactly. And the story actually goes on to describe these little moments of connection starting to happen between other people in the cafe.
Really? Like what?
People are smiling at each other, striking up conversations, even doing small acts of kindness. It's like Barron's empathy, his willingness to listen, created this ripple effect of positivity.
Wow, so one act of listening, just one conversation, can actually change the whole vibe of a place. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And it reminds me of that saying, be the change you want to see in the world,
It's true. We often underestimate the power of individual actions.
Right. We might think, oh, it's just me. What difference can I make? But this story shows that even small acts of kindness, like really listening to someone, can have a huge impact, not just on that person, but on the people around them too.
So what happens next? Does the man just leave, feeling better now that he's gotten it all out? Or does this encounter with Barron have a more lasting impact on him?
Well, he does end up leaving, but not before apologizing to the whole cafe. It's like he's starting to let go of some of that anger, realizing maybe it wasn't really about Barron at all.
Yeah, it sounds like he's just looking for someone to blame for his situation.
Right. It was about a world that he felt had failed him in a lot of ways. And by talking it out, being heard, he was able to sort of separate the anger from the real pain underneath.
It's like that anger was just masking something deeper.
Exactly. And that release, that letting go, it seems like it was contagious too, Remember how we were talking about that ripple effect?
Yeah, how Barron's empathy sort of spread to the other people in the cafe.
Well, it doesn't stop there. The cafe, it's like it transforms after the man leaves. People are connecting more, being kind to each other. It's like Barron's empathy sparked something bigger, something that went beyond just that one interaction.
It makes you think, what if we all approached every interaction with that kind of openness, that willingness to listen without judgment? I mean,
Yeah.
realistically, most of us aren't going to run into Barron Trump at our local coffee shop.
Right.
But we do encounter people every day who might be struggling, who might just need someone to listen.
That's the key takeaway here, isn't it? This story, it's not just about a chance encounter. It's a challenge to us. How can we bring that same empathy, that same active listening into our own lives, into our everyday interactions?
And you mentioned that active listening is a skill, something we
Yeah.
can learn and get better at.
Yeah.
So for someone listening who's thinking, okay, I want to be a better listener, where do they even start?
I think it starts with awareness, paying attention to how you listen, how you react when someone's talking to you. Are you really present in the conversation, or are you just sort of waiting for your turn to speak? Are you making assumptions about the other person, or are you genuinely trying to understand their perspective?
It's so easy to fall into those traps, like we're always rushing to fill the silence, to offer solutions, instead of just sitting with someone's experience and really listening to what they're going through.
It's true. And it's not always about, having some big, deep conversation. It can be as simple as putting your phone down when someone's talking to you,
Yeah.
asking clarifying questions, really trying to see the world through their eyes, even for just a few minutes. Those little things can make a big difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from this story?
That's a good question. I'd say this. The next time you interact with someone, even if it's just a brief encounter, see if you can approach it with a bit more intention, a bit more empathy. You never know what kind of ripple effect you might create.
It's a powerful thought and a great place to leave it for our listeners. That's our deep dive for today. We hope this story has given you some things to think about, some new ways to approach your own interactions. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep diving.